Hello, and welcome to She Comes By, a podcast where I interrogate my friends about their sexuality. This week's episode is very special because I interview the one, the only, Josh Stretten-Carlson, who is not only a friend of the show, but also the wonderful editor and executive producer of She Comes By. I hope you come by and join us. Our guest today needs no introduction, but I ask guests to introduce themselves on the show. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Josh Stretten-Carlson. I am a podcast producer here in LA. Last year, I started an indie podcast network called Industry Plant Media, where we have the lovely Alex with She Comes By, Ariel Butters with Actually Useful, and Atusa Benji with Mama Tusa. They're all women-hosted shows in the social impact space, and I've been having a lot of fun.
Wow, what a beautiful introduction. Who are we to each other?
Usual adversaries, but today I'll try to keep it in check. We're homies. I met you, I think, over a year ago now, which is crazy. But I used to run a podcast at Village Well in Culver City, which is an independent bookstore. And one day you came in and we've been homies ever since. We
met a year ago, and then I think I told you I worked at NPR and you were like, oh, do you want to get coffee? And I was like, yeah, I don't do anything with the podcast, but like I'm happy to like get coffee and like chat about stuff. And then at the end of that coffee, we had decided to start a podcast together. Or really, I had decided to start a podcast with you. So now you're the producer, but I got you on mic anyway.
Well, Alex, you have a lot of takes and the world needs to hear them. To be fair, before we had even started working together, you had a very lovely Substack called She Comes By Weekly, where you talked about and elevated queer content in the bi space. So I feel like it was a natural kind of evolution, you know?
Absolutely. Well, it's been like a lifelong goal to be the Terry Gross of bisexuality. So I really appreciate.
Thanks, my friend.
Of course. So you're really, I feel so grateful to you. And you're also really talented. Like, lucky me. Like, I really just like a random bisexual at a bookstore is like, yo, can I produce your podcast? And I was just like, yeah. And you sent me one cut of our first one. You actually, I really liked how you did it. You were like, I'm going to send you two cuts, one that's like a little more loose, one that's a little tighter. And immediately I was like, the tight one is how I want to go. But again, very, very talented, very professional.
Well, you know, would we be bisexuals if we didn't both have massive imposter syndrome and delusions of grandeur?
Yeah. It's both. It's very much both. But you're also just like really, not only are you good at like very talented at editing, you're also like incredibly good at sourcing guests. You're like, you know, as we spoke about on the last episode, fearlessly can go up to people and be like, hey, like, do you want to be a guest on this podcast? Yeah, you're just like, I right as soon as I met you, I was like, this man has got it.
Look, when you're competing in air guitar competitions in high school, like your tolerance for embarrassment in a public setting is pretty good. And I think that that's translated very well in my professional life, where I'm like, the worst people can say is nothing. Like, they just ghost you, you know? And it's not like I'm going to be pushy, but I'm certainly going to send a couple follow-up emails. And I think that's how you get places in this world.
It very much is. And I remember even one of our other guests, Allie Rogers, she also is a podcast producer. She was, you know, one of the people who inspired me to make this podcast because of her and Nat Roberts' podcast, Snails and Oysters. We connected with her because I wanted her to be a guest on the show, but also I was like, she's a freelance podcast video producer, like in the same space. Like, I'm sure Josh and Allie would have stuff to talk about. And I remember, I think I originally connected you, and then after she was on the podcast, you like sent her another email that was like, hey, like, I heard you're doing this thing, like, would love to help out if you need it. And she was just like, I was just so impressed. She was like, I need to be more like Josh. I need to just like put myself out there and like just like send the thing. And like, yeah, the worst thing she could say is no, which I think she did say no, because I think it wasn't something she needed a collaborator on. But still, like, if you don't ask, you don't get.
We are reaching our contractually obligated maximum number of compliments for me in a show. So I'm going to have to ask you, beg you to stop, but I do appreciate it.
Okay. Well, then I will ask you what you're up to these days.
Well, I have a project in the works, which would be the 4th show on the network, and I can't say much about it now, but more info to come, which has been really exciting. I think my favorite part of my job is just like meeting really intelligent people who are a lot smarter than me that can teach me things. And then some of those people become clients. So it's like a very kind of natural, you know, you book people and then other people are interested in doing projects and it kind of evolves from there. So hopefully more to say on that very soon, Alex.
Well, I'm very excited. You know, you said your current shows are all women-led. Why do you think women trust you with their voices and their ideas?
I think in general of people of any background, like I try to be curious about people's stories and I try to ask a lot of questions. And I don't know, I studied psychology. I try to understand people who I meet, and I have really enjoyed learning a lot from you and Ariel and Atusa. And then a component of it too is also just like there are just a lot of ways in which we need to fix things that impact women's lives. Atusa talks a lot about healthcare because she's a midwife. So we have like a crazy high female mortality rate in this country, which needs to be addressed. Ariel talks a lot about problems in tech. And while it's not like a kind of a gender focused podcast, like she is a female product manager, but we do obviously talk about women's issues. We did a whole episode on how AI is like making misogyny worse in the digital space and in real life. And then on this show, we talk a lot about like the intersection of queerness and womanhood or marginalized genders in general. And so, yeah, I don't know that I'm like super qualified to talk about all these things, but I've always tried to be curious and learn as much as I can.
There's one thing I know about Josh. The ladies love him. I'm sorry, that wasn't a that doesn't count as a compliment because it was said with a weird accent and was a
okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I guess I'm also curious how you got into podcasting specifically. I know you said you like worked at a talent agency, like and you also, I mean, I know you're a musician besides just air guitar competitions.
That's the main one.
Right. What got you interested like specifically in the podcasting space?
Yeah, I think like I am still just really figuring out what I want to do in my life, but I really didn't know when I was in school and felt very kind of directionless. Like the thing I've always been sure about is wanting a family and like being a dad and all that stuff. But the one thing that had always been a through line was music for me. So I started drumming when I was 11. Then in high school was in, jazz band. Then in college was in an indie band. Check out Bottle Rocket, wherever you listen. Also my solo project, Joshua Jane, which I still just do for fun, but was a drummer, was in some bands. And then in college learned how to produce music. My brother is actually a producer and a full-time touring musician. Famous Friend, wherever you listen. He's a total badass. He's like literally an internationally touring artist, so he's crushing it. But he taught me how to produce. And then I started running the recording studio at Middlebury, where I went to college, and really just like kind of fell in love with that world, was learning how to help students like record and release their own projects. Did some of that for myself, learned how to like run a studio, like book everything, and then also manage inventory and equipment and rentals and all this stuff. And then, after college, had always been interested in entertainment. My dad's a writer. I come from an entertainment family. And at the same time, I started listening to like news podcasts like Pod Save America and all these things. And I felt like they were genuinely making an impact in the world and like bringing people's attention to really important issues. And I felt like really drawn to that world. And I figured I have enough experience with music. I bet I could figure out how to do this. And honestly, just started pitching myself to people until I built up enough clients to like pay my rent. And, here we are. So that was a very long answer to your question, but I guess it's just to say that it was kind of weirdly a bunch of things that I didn't really have a plan with that all kind of coalesced. I've cared about politics and news and stories that matter to people, cared about music and recording, learned all of that stuff, and have kind of just been putting it together as I go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these days, like the connection between entertainment, audio, and like, you know, the music producing experience you had in like audio editing, like that's a pretty clean through line, as opposed to a career switcher like me, where I can draw a through line retrospectively. But at the time, there was no through line between my linguistics and international studies degree, then into a political organizing job, then into sales and marketing, then into full-time dog walking, then into software engineering. Like, if you ask me in a job interview the through line, I can make one, but it's a lie. It's an illusion. There is none. But
what is harder, dealing with snot-nosed developers or a pack of wild dogs?
Snot-nosed developers, absolutely. I would rather deal with snot-nosed dogs than snot-nosed developers any day. Speaking as a snot-nosed developer.
There we go. You know, it is funny, as I've been meeting people in this industry, there kind of seems to be three backgrounds that people come from. There's like the film kids, there's the journalism kids, and then there's the music kids. And no shade to the other two, but I think we really understand a lot of the ins and outs of, you know, how to make things sound good. This stuff isn't rocket science, but it's just been very nice for me to feel like these things have transferred over.
I think we've now come to the real question of the show. Josh Stretten-Carlson, are you bi? Why or why not?
I am bi. Why am I bisexual? Probably because I was a member of my high school's GSA and they turned me gay, if I had to guess.
Yeah, they voted me to be gay. I got voted the vice president and then I had to be gay.
Okay, cool. Yeah, did they also give you the injection at Rocky Horror?
Yes. Right into my forehead with the lipstick and the V.
Only bi people listen to this, right? It's okay for me to talk about the secret injection.
For sure.
Okay, cool. You know, it's funny. I don't think I figured it out for like quite a while. I like, once I came out, it was easier in some respects to look back and be like, oh, when I was an 11-year-old at camp, like those weren't feelings of friendship towards this. I mean, they were, but like they were also romantic. And then kind of getting older, you know, you can like run the tape back and kind of be like, oh, this person who I wanted to be my best friend, you know, or this guy, I wanted to be just like him. You kind of start to be like, oh, I think that might have been there might have been a different texture to that emotion than maybe I was aware of at the time, you know? But the other thing that's kind of interesting for me is that it wasn't because of a lack of like words to describe that experience. Like a lot of my friends have been queer for like a lot of my life. I think I'm one of the last people to come out in my high school friend group. So like I was certainly around queer people and queer culture. I think sometimes you just like have to meet the right person and then it becomes like so overwhelmingly obvious that it's like, oh, okay, well, undeniably every part of my soul knows this to be the truth now. And, you know, that one experience can be very helpful in kind of clarifying things for you, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Another podcast I'm a fan of that my friends produce, Tommy Siegel and Billy Libby, have a bird rock podcast where they make songs about birds. There's something in birding apparently called like a spark bird, where like, what's the first bird that like got you into birding? I feel like there's a spark by, like a spark or a spark person, like a spark crush. And some people are like, oh, I always knew. But even then you still kind of have your like, oh, like this moment. Like I felt a spark. Something was ignited.
Totally. I mean, I can remember that moment so clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what does bisexuality mean to you?
I'm going to steal Ryan's definition because I think they had the best one, which is attraction to those of your gender and of genders different from yours. So it's not just men and women, but it's people, you know, like you and not like you. And I like that one because I think like something we've talked about like on mic and off mic is that like bi people have always been a part of queer history, whether it's that label or another label. The US government website about Stonewall, I think, recently took off all mentions of bisexual people who are part of that. So maybe we don't exist anymore. I don't really know how the math works on that. But, you know, I think it's a very simple term that helps me explain who I am, and people just kind of like get it, and we can move on with our lives, you know?
Totally. And related to that, what words do you use to describe your sexuality?
I mostly say bi. I'll say queer, especially to other queer people, like as an umbrella term. I'll definitely say gay as an umbrella term. And another thing I'm stealing from Ryan is Achillean, which is the corresponding term for sapphic, because Achilles being gay, you know, both coming out of classical tradition.
Beautiful. Also, I can't hear Achillean without thinking of the beautiful, one of my favorite books, Song of Achilles. So great. If you haven't read it, you should read it.
Gay.
Very gay.
Very gay.
Very gay. I didn't know, and unfortunately I have now spoiled it for you, so you don't get to have this experience that I did, which was I did not know it was gay, and then I was reading it, and I was like, wait a second. Are they, that seems, are they gonna? Oh,
Wait
they're
a
gonna.
second. No one told me this was gay. I'm out.
I know. I love when things turn out to be gay. There's another fantasy book that I read that I think is like, it's pretty well known for being kind of gay, but like I just didn't know that at the time. Like I had somehow not been spoiled, and then I was reading it and I was like, that's so gay. Like I was like, you're in love with her. Why is this a thing? Like what an annoying thing that it's like that they're not gonna get together. Not even queer baiting, just like this is so silly. And then I was like, lo and behold, gay. And that was lovely. Okay, next question. When did you realize you weren't straight?
I think it was a very interesting time. I think maybe when you start having those first moments of self-reflection and like doubt and transformation, I think a lot of things get called into question in your life of like, who do I want to be? Like, how do I want to present myself in the world? Like all sorts of different things. But it really was like, I figured this all out. You know how Chapel Roan took like a decade to blow up in a month? It feels like that, where it was like a lot of things had been building unconsciously, and then I figured it all out like pretty quickly and knew it to be true, and like came out pretty soon after that.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. It's like that quote where it's like, you fell in love like you fell asleep, slowly and then all at once. Has there ever been a time when you questioned your sexuality?
Oh, for sure. I think like as everyone around me came out from like between middle school and college, pretty much all my childhood friends, except for a couple, I was like, well, what's so special about me that I'm different? Like, there's no way I'm not also queer. But I don't know. It feels like just like the right set of circumstances hadn't helped me realize it. And I think I was fighting against a lot of, like, to be honest with you, dude, I think I still am dealing with a lot of shame around it. I think as a man who feels pretty sure and confident that I am a man, there is this immediate internalized homophobia that you experience when you realize that you're not straight, where your masculinity can feel very threatened. And of course it's all bullshit, but it is a very real feeling. And I think that there can be this perception, you know, that all bi men are secretly gay and all bi women are secretly straight. And part of that is like the male gaze and thinking that everyone like desires men and is a very patriarchal lens. But it also is this kind of like, if you're any percentage queer, you're no longer a man. You know, like if you deviate at all, you know, when people talk about like fragile masculinity, part of that idea is also that like, you know, the slightest questioning of that sets other people off and yourself off. And it's just taken a lot of untangling for me, honestly, of like trying to figure out who I want to be and like what values are important to me and like how I want to exist in the world and like how much stereotypical masculinity like is that even important to me in my life, you know? Or like I've been very lucky to have very positive male role models in my life, and like I view a lot of their qualities, like my dad's qualities, as like things I want to aspire to be. But also there's like tons of problems with men in society, and like I don't want to have anything to do with some qualities. So it's just, we all have different flavors of this, whether it's gender, whether it's sexuality, whatever your journey is. But I think for me, it's been very much about that journey of disentangling, like, what does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a queer man? What does it mean to just be an adult of any gender? And like, and who do I want to be, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're like always coming out in new ways. Even once you like first you kind of admit it to yourself, then you decide to tell it to some other people. Then it's like, well, do I tell my parents? And it was really, for me, I remember at least one of the progressions I remember was like, well, yeah, I want to kiss a woman. Of course, I want to do that. That was so fun. Having sex with a woman was also so fun. So that's great. And I, you know, in the first episode where I like kind of go through my story, it's like, and then I knew I wasn't straight, but it's like, I didn't know what that meant necessarily. Like I remember like the progression of kind of knowing that I enjoyed like having sexual experiences with women, but I was like, but I don't want to date I would want to date a woman. Like I can't see myself like falling in love with a woman. And then I fell in love with one of my best friends, and that was fun for a while. But even in that relationship, I was like, well, like, I can't like imagine like we're in love, but like, this isn't going to last. Like we're having so much fun, and like, I'm really enjoying this. And like, this person's like one of my best friends, and like, now we have sex, and like, that's really cool. But like, there's no future here. And then like the next girl I dated, I was like, oh, no, I do see a future with you. And I think like some of that of like, oh, I just like kissing girls at parties, or like, oh, like I'll date you, but like I don't want a future with you. Like that's some of the reasons, like, you know, people will give for not wanting to date bisexual women, because like, oh, they'll never fully commit to you. They just want to screw around, but they don't want anything serious. And, you know, we push back on that. We being the vocal bisexual community, like we push back on those stereotypes, but there's an element to which like it's true for a little while. But I think that's the hard thing. It's like, I don't have that compatibility because I'm bisexual. Like, that's just like, I had that compatibility because I'm afraid of commitment. I don't know. I was just like still figuring out. And so anyone who knew that they wanted to like get married, or knew that they wanted like a long-term committed relationship, shouldn't have been dating me at that point.
I think that's something a lot of us go through, especially maybe those of us who are pretty sure about having a family and settling down and all that stuff, is you go through similar things of like, well, sure, guys are cute, but like, I don't know if XYZ. And then I do think things become revealed as you live and have new experiences, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's okay. Like, I think that's the thing. Like, it's okay to be where you're at. I think a lot of stuff gets lost in kind of the discourse of like lesbian versus bi versus gay versus bi versus yada, yada, yada. It's like, so at a certain point, we just have to be like, some people are there, and that is okay. And if I don't like that, then I have to go find some other people who are in a place that I do want to be in.
Totally. And like creating, you know, found family and all that, I think is really important.
I have a few more questions for you. What role does sexuality play in your life?
So interesting, these questions you ask, Alex, my friend. I think the main one is just that as I have like grown more into myself, like I find myself spending more and more time with other queer people. I don't know, just off the top of my head, I would say the vast majority of people I spend time with are queer. It has been really nice for me in the last few years to like intentionally or not just kind of create this community. I even think some of it is just subconscious, just like people I have been drawn to. I think there can be a shorthand with other people, like even if we come from different places or like we're different genders or whatever, like at some point in your life, if you are out, you did have to do like some amount of soul searching and like you probably don't feel like, I don't know, 100% like you perfectly fit into everything around you, you know? And like, I do think there's some amount of camaraderie there.
Well, before I ask my closing questions, I have to ask you if you would like to play a very silly game.
Oh, I'm so in.
The name of this game is Gay, Straight, Bi.
Gay, straight, bi.
This is a game where you arbitrarily have to assign the very firm, not flexible, not fluid labels of gay, straight, bi to 3 things that I will give to you.
Okay.
The categories are film kid, journalism kid, music kid.
Journalism straight, easy. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to my queer journalism major friends out there. Music, I'm going to say, is gay. Even as a bisexual musician, just vibes-wise.
Vibes. Just vibes.
Like, come on. You're making a little song. It's a little gay. And then I'll go film bisexual because I think it can really tell any story. There you go.
So beautiful. The penultimate question is, do you have a favorite piece of bi content or bi media that you'd like to share with the class?
Of course, my favorite piece of bi media is the She Comes bi-weekly newsletter from Alex Mannix, which I think does a wonderful job of elevating the bi experience, which for all our jokes during this recording session, I really appreciate about you, Alex. And I love that you highlight, you know, lesser known stories or celebrities. And I think it's really important, especially as a component, an essential component of the queer community. Like we've all got to stand up for each other, stand up for our trans folks in our community as well. Like it's all the same battle that we're part of right now, you know? So I really appreciate you centering joy in that and sharing stories. It makes me feel good. In terms of broader, just like queer content, I just watched The Birdcage, which is Robin Williams and Nathan Lane. And they, Robin Williams owns this drag bar and Nathan Lane is like the star performer in the drag bar, and their straight son brings home a straight girl, and they're going to get married and they have to meet the parents. And of course, who's her dad but this incredibly conservative senator and like a very traditional mother figure, and they have to win them over. And so they try to pretend to be straight, but they can't do it, and hijinks ensue. But the thing that really struck me is like, just like the dignity and grace that Robin Williams brings to that role. Like he just plays a very like solidly confident gay man who like knows who he is and doesn't apologize for himself, which was really incredible to see. And then also just thinking of like, man, like there are some movies from the 90s that feel somehow more progressive than they feel simultaneously more and less progressive than they would be today. Cause there's some really fucked up jokes in that movie, but again, just like the dignity and the humanity of the characters in that film, and like a pretty beautiful love story between these two characters, and like a straight actor delivering like that convincing of a performance. Like I just found it very touching, and it made me wish that more projects like that got greenlit today, you know? So I highly recommend checking it out.
Hell yeah. I love that movie. I love Nathan Lane. I love Robin Williams, but I especially love Nathan Lane.
Well, there's also a story that Nathan Lane tells where when they were on Oprah getting interviewed for the movie, and Oprah kind of cornered him and was like, "Are you gay, bro?" And then Robin Williams just immediately intersected and basically just started roasting Oprah and completely diverted the attention away from that part of the interview. And like years later, Nathan Lane, I think even after Robin Williams' death, is like, he was such a true friend to me in that moment because he knew I was uncomfortable. I didn't want to come out yet, and he just so had my back. So, you know, what a beautiful ally as well.
Well, Josh, how can people find you? What have you got going on?
Yeah, sure. The website is industryplantmedia.com. On Instagram, we're industryplant.media. Always happy to chat with folks either who are audio nerds or have a project they're interested in, or just check out our content, because I think we're doing some pretty cool shows. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for coming by, Josh.
She Comes By is part of the Industry Plant Podcast Network. It's hosted by me, Alex Mannix, and edited and executive produced by Josh Stretten-Carlson. If you're interested in more bisexual content, check out the She Comes By Weekly newsletter at shecomesbyweekly.substack.com. That's shecomesbyweekly.substack.com.